What's the number one question you hear people ask when they find out someone died by suicide? In this video, we will discuss the 3 predictors of people who have died by suicide, which a lot of my work touches on as a clinical psychologist. If you or someone you know is in danger of having suicidality or suicidal thoughts, anything along those lines, please call 988. Thank you. All right, so what do I know about suicide? I was once on this $1 million grant from the CDC, and the big thing that we were looking at was we were taking Dr. Thomas Joyner, the author of Why People Die by Suicide. We were taking his model that was predominantly done on adults and seeing whether or not it held true for adolescents. And so what his whole book and his model was about were the 3 predictors of people who die by suicide. What are those 3 characteristics that people who who have died by suicide, what are those 3 predictors so that we can understand them and we can start looking for them? So that's what we're going to be doing in this episode. All right, the 3 predictors, and I'm going to put them into English, are thwarted belongingness, perceived burdensomeness, and acquired capacity to enact lethal harm. What? Okay, here's the English part. All right, it's thwarted belongingness. It's when people feel or they think like they don't belong anywhere. Number 2, perceived burdensomeness is when people feel like they are a burden or drain on the resources of their loved ones. Number 3, probably the most confusing out of all of them, is acquired capacity to enact lethal harm. Is that suicide is almost where it's like you have to build up a pain tolerance through adverse childhood experiences, stressful life events, childhood victimization, all of those things. And so you have to build up this pain tolerance where you can actually enact, like do lethal harm onto yourself. Because one of our biggest surviving systems is that we don't want to die. We want to stay alive. And so the people who are dying by suicide, they're combating that. And so the question that people want to know is, why did they do it? That is the number one question that I have. And these 3 predictors are the answers to that most common, probably one of the top common questions, is why did they do it? They didn't feel like they belonged. They felt like they were a burden, and they had kind of built up this pain tolerance to, take their own life. Knowing these 3 predictors won't give us the ones who have died by suicide back. We can't get them back, unfortunately. But what it can do by knowing these 3 predictors, the answers to the most common question, why did they do it? What it can do for us is that it can fuel the rest of us as a society to make some changes. And here are 3 practical changes that I would like us as a society to start making. And it's going to take each and every single one of us to start stomping out the suicide. And it has to deal with it's one for each of the predictors. And then for the other videos that I have in this series, it's all going to kind of touch on these 3 predictors, because I think it's super important that people know what the predictors of suicide are. Thwarted belongingness, perceived burdensomeness, and acquired capacity to enact lethal harm. All right, so first tip, dealing with the thwarted belongingness, making people feel like they belong. Put your phones down. Talk to your loved ones. Talk to your family. Talk to strangers. That's one of my favorite tips to give college students. Talk to strangers, because you never know who's standing next to you in a line. Have a conversation. I know recently when I went on my momcation, I was sitting at a bar and I was watching, I think, the Cincinnati Reds, and I was reading a book at a bar, and it was funny because this old man looked at the woman next to him and she's like, how is she reading in a bar? But anyways, the woman sitting next to me let me know that she is like this 80-year-old something widow. She just lost her husband on Christmas, and she was telling me all about it, and I just listened to her. And it turns out that she goes to this bar 5 out of 7 times every week, 5 days out of 7 days, every week, because she just feels lonely. And this bar gives her a place where she belongs because she can see people that she knows and she can talk to strangers like me. And so I absolutely loved having that ability to like bond with her and connect with her. And if I ever see her again, I'll be like, hey, Sue, how are you doing today? All right, number 2, perceived burdensomeness. I want us to encourage volunteerism, because when we're volunteering, we feel like we have a purpose, like we're contributing to society. And I know that the 2 organizations that I sit on, either a committee or a board on, we are struggling to find volunteers to work on childhood grief, and volunteers to help kids who come from fatherless homes. And I'm like, what is going on? Let's volunteer. So if you have been thinking about volunteering and you just haven't like gone and done it yet, well then please take this as like your red flag, like, hey, go do like your red light, like go do that, go volunteer. Take your kids, teach your kids that volunteering is important. It can be whatever cause you want. Just make sure that you're doing it and it's giving you a sense of purpose, and encourage others. Companies, encourage your employees to volunteer. And it shouldn't be like a voluntold kind of thing, like they have to do it. No, it's like this volunteerism. Like, let's start building up our volunteerism, because it's going to start giving us senses of purpose, which is super important. I talked about it in the previous video on suicide about how when people feel purposeless, it's one of those warning signs in the Is Path Warm series that we want to look at, because it's such a big deal. And then the third one, acquired capacity for enacting lethal harm. Okay, the big thing is, and this is a mission that's, close to my heart, if you've been following me for a while, is that we need to be fortifying families. We need to be teaching individual coping skills. We need to be teaching relationship skills. We need to be teaching parenting skills. Because if we are fortifying families, if we are making families stronger, and more families are functioning at a high level instead of all of this chaos and dysfunction that I'm seeing in families, well, then it's going to start having an impact on the environments that kids are raised in. And I said in my TEDx talk, if you haven't watched it yet, go and watch it. You'll know all about me. That's all you need to know about me if you've never watched it. It's called From Murder to Mission, How I Found My Life's Calling. In it, one of the phrases that I love that I said myself, that sounds very egotistical, I'm sorry, is, if you want to change the world, it starts with your family, because that's what you have control over. You have what you yourself are doing and how you're interacting with your family. And if we're raising youth in these families that are loving and caring and setting high expectations within the context of the warm and fuzzy, well, then less individuals are going to acquire that capacity to enact lethal harm. They're going to have coping skills. They're going to have relationship skills. They're going to have parenting skills. And then we're going to start to see suicide start to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And eventually we're going to eradicate suicide. And that's what we want. We want to stomp out suicide. So this was the second video answering the question, why did they do it? It's because they didn't feel like they belonged. They felt like they were a burden, and they had a high pain tolerance. That's why people die by suicide. And I want to get rid of that. And we gave you guys practical skills that you can start doing to start helping get rid of suicide and helping the ones that you love in your life feel loved, feel like they belong, feel like they have purpose, and just be raising and in part of loving environments. This is the second video of 4 videos that we are bringing across the month of September for Suicide Prevention Month. So please check out the other videos, share them. These are super important. And by doing this, we're going to be stomping out suicide, and we're going to be throat punching the Gen Z mental health crisis. Let's go.